Hi guys, welcome to another episode of JDM Masters, and on today's car it's an incomplete Civic, but not just any Civic. In our previous episode we showed you the Built by Legends BBL Mines R32 GTR, and this is their second project car. It's the Honda Civic SiR EG6. There's a lot of custom parts, and we're going to be looking in depth for the first time what actually goes into it and what we can expect. So if you want to know more about this, come join us. So let's have a look at exactly what the BBL Civic EG6 is all about. Now if you look here, it's a carbon fiber bonnet. Normal Civics are white body. It's got the word Spoon Sports on there. Doesn't seem like anything really different from numerous pictures on Instagram and what people are actually doing to replicate the Spoon demo car. But this, of course, being a Built by Legends project, is always something very special, something that's out of the ordinary. In fact, the concept of this car is to bring it to a level that is very similar to the race cars from the 90s, the Group N, and more specifically, the JTCC, the Japan Touring Car Championship, which was in a short period after the N1 race series and before they started the JTCC. Now that era is something that not many people know about, and it's not really in a lot of media, but the secrets or the details under the bonnet is very, very much like a race car. Let's have a look. So I'm going to lift the very lightweight, genuine Spoon carbon fiber bonnet, and already you can see the yellow head, which is, of course, this is a B18C 1.8 litre taken from an Integra Type R DC2, fully rebuilt by Spoon. It has the iconic yellow cam head cover. But what do you see here? This exhaust manifold already immediately tells you this is something very different. It's a side flow exhaust, so it doesn't go underneath the oil pan as in the original car. Now, looking at this, you can already see how just different it is from the normal car. This side flow exhaust coming to the side is very much the design like a race car from that sort of era. But the EG6 by BBL is very, very special. It incorporates some technology that's taken directly from racing experience by a very renowned race car builder called Opera Performance. And for those of you who played Gran Turismo will probably recognize this name. And you see the famous S2000 in the circuit, and also they were responsible for building the Super Taikyu Civic Type R EG9 winner, the driver competition car. And so Yamamoto-san has a lot of experience in building these sort of race cars. He put a big hand into improving the chassis rigidity by a process called carbon vacuum forming. The word for it is actually carbon layering. It's a new technology that's been actually experimented with the first time. We're going to be taking a look at some of those details in a minute. But let's have a look at this technical masterpiece, this radiator here. Normally the radiator on the Civics sits behind the radiator core support. It's half size, full size for the tuned ones, but this sits right in front in order to suit the characteristics of this exhaust manifold made of pure titanium, hand-built by a very experienced exhaust maker, which was responsible for the entire exhaust system. So this car is actually a combination of various different ideas and put together in the highest level of workmanship that is available in Japan. Thus is the tuning concept of Built by Legends. Hopefully they will inspire you if you are into restoring or actually restomodding old 90s iconic sports cars. Maybe there are sort of ideas you can take, but let's have a look in also deeper detail. What are the things that they've gone through 2 years in the making in order to make this perhaps the best, most finely tuned Honda Civic VTEC in the world. Now, why go through all this trouble to do a side flow exhaust? As we explained earlier, the objective was to lower the center of gravity of the engine, in fact by an impressive 40 millimeters. Now if you look here, the actual engine line that goes across the edge of the fender, you can sort of tell it is actually lower if you actually compare it to the EG9 over there, which still has the same B16B, it's the same height as the B18, so it's a good reference. The height compared to the fender line is actually lowered a little bit. Now this gives a lot of handling benefits because By lowering the center of gravity of the engine, you can actually give better balance for the suspension to do its work on the litre. But more importantly, traditionally when you lower cars on the suspension itself, it also means you reduce the all-important stroke, which is important when going through rough corners and especially at the limit in corners. This is something that Group A and high-level touring race cars do. By lowering the engine, they can actually reduce the amount of actual lowering on the suspension in order to give it a lot more stroke. So you don't have to actually slam the car. Stance really isn't the way to go if you want to go for handling. At the same time, to give that nice gap fender clearance looks. But in actual fact, if you look at the traditional 1990s purpose-built JDM tuning concept, there was always a little gap between the fender and the tire in order to give it more stroke. But for this car, it's even more obvious because they can actually lower it to the sort of race car stance, but still give a lot of needed stroke. So the suspension is a full spoon coilovers, which suits very much the original double wishbone suspension design, which is very unique for a car of this segment. Only the Civics actually had them front and rear in this class. So taking advantage of that, it's actually more handling focused rather than outright power. The power is the same as a normal B18C. Rebuilt by Spoon, as we explained in our previous video, the parts have been balanced to within 1/100th of a gram in order to give it better revving reliability and also the extra smoothness, less vibrations that will actually create much better response. What we're after here is response rather than outright power. But because this is a Built by Legends car, power is also one of the objectives of this sort of tune. But that is going to come from this exhaust. Let's have a look at these details right here. Now let's see this beautiful mandrel bend. It's made of titanium, and you can see right here every curve, every section has been beautifully welded in through the side, and it goes on the side. This is called a side flow exhaust and goes to the back of that very narrow aperture of the front subframe. A lot of plumbing had to be custom made and brackets had to be redone in order to give that clearance. But the objective of doing such a tune is response rather than changing for outright bigger. So it's probably not 240 as you would expect, but all that usable power through such an exhaust system, pressed accelerator, it's just going to rev up really, really quickly to give that race car experience. Now, of course, this experiment is something that BBL has taken much further than what normal tuners would actually do. And you can see these springs. Doesn't it look a bit like something you'll see from a racing motorcycle? And that's because the person who made this used to work for Yoshimura, which you know as a very famous exhaust tuner. The original piece is right here. This is the original piece that you guys have seen in our previous video at the Spoon Collection in 2020. This is how light it is. It probably weighs maybe less than 5 or 6 kilograms. Beautiful mandrel bend, looks like a motorcycle. This was actually a bit thicker, and the version that you see in the engine right here has been retuned and resized for torque and response. Now, a lot of other things here you see on the strut tower, this beautiful carbon fiber. It's not a sticker, it's real carbon fiber that has been fused onto the body in order to give it rigidity that equals a race car with a roll cage. Now, being a road car built by Legends, is very strictly insisted that it will have the performance as close as possible to a high-level tuning car, which in this car, the reference point is a race car, but still maintains stability, comfort of a road car. Other parts that you see here had to be custom built, these radiator lines. Now, because the exhaust flow has been changed from under the oil pan to the side, the radiator lines are very different compared to the standard Civic. Going from side here, usually the upper hose and the lower hose are at this location in a normal car. But in this case, it's been rerouted to the right. And so this is a custom built radiator pressure tank, and a custom line had to be built. As you can see here, hard line goes round the back onto the thermostat housing somewhere underneath here, which also resembles how the race cars look like. The engine mounts had to be modified in order to suit the lowering of the car as well. Now, many custom parts took a lot of time to build and to get perfect. So let's have a look also at the inside to see what further tuning has been done for the carbon fiber. Now, the amount of the carbon layering has also extended through the floor inside of the car. In fact, all the way from the firewall, as you can see here, the layering has also covered all the way from the sill over the floor, over the center tunnel, which is where it will get the most benefit from having a stiffer floor all the way to the midsection. Now, what's the purpose of actually doing this? Adding carbon fiber, making it really stiff through this process called vacuum forming, actually fuses the stiffness of the carbon layering onto the metal, which replicate a thicker sheet metal in order to have a stiffer floor. Now, in a handling of a car, the sheet metal of the floor is the most important component in ensuring body rigidity. The more rigid body you have, the better the suspension actually works when you have high grip tires in a racing situation or high sports driving situation. What you want is more rigidity. There are many ways to do it, of course. People can add strut bars, they can add floor bars underneath, or even a roll cage. All these actually add weight. Bolt-on parts may be the only solution, but this is actually going a step further and beyond by actually using carbon fiber to make the floor of the EG generation Civic as strong, or maybe exceeding the much better next generation EK Civic over there, as you can see, in order to improve the floor rigidity. So taking this extent to actually spend the time to put all this carbon fiber, which in the final finished product, the center tunnel will be exposed in order to show that this technology and the carbon fiber has been done. With new carpets also built by a specialty high-level shop that makes these carpets original for the Civic and Honda in its day. Other things that will be special in the final car, of course, you'll have the dashboard with many typical Built by Legends items, the shift knob, the steering wheel, the seats covered with the special cloth, and original meters as well. Even the door handles would be different, made of aluminium, to give that like classy finish. The extent of the carbon layering has not been applied to the rear as much. The Civic EG hatchback is already pretty good in terms of the structural stiffness. In a front-wheel drive car, you want the floor stiffness and the front to handle really well. So most of the rear has been left original and be fitted with all the normal parts. But look at this interesting part here. The body is colored in gray to give that same feel as a race car, which is also done. You can see in our previous video, the EG6 spoon race car, that same sort of fashion, same sort of feel for the road car. And it's going to be very interesting. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Imura-san used to work for Spoon.
I don't know.
You don't know? Mystery.
I don't remember.
But he's the man who's helped to realize this concept of no one knows Civics better than him. Imura-san, ありがとうございます。
こちらこそありがとうございます。
このシビックすごいんですよ。
どの辺がすごいと思う？
すべてなんかそのコンセプトがなんでこういう風になってるのがちょっと聞きたいんですけど。
BBL ビルドバイレジェンスのコンセプトとしてストリートカーをテーマにしているので、ガチガチのそのレーシングカーを目指してるわけじゃないですか。はい。でチューニングカーなんだけどチューニングカーに見えないところ、なるべくシンプルで、それは GTR も同じなんですけど、とにかくセンスよく大人が乗れるシビックを作りたかった。はい。もうさっき聞いた話のが JTCC のレースカーのEG9 の時代のフローとかそういうコンセプトですか？シビック、EG6 のレースシーンでいうと、まずグループ A っていう、一番華やかな時代があって、一番勝ってた時代、そこから94年から JTCC っていう4ドアの2リッターっていうツーリングカーのレースが始まって、残念ながらその時 EG9 シビックフェリオはトヨタとか日産とか にどうしてもこう叶わなかった。で、一番、車のサイズだったりジオメトリーだったりっていうのがどうしてもその、コンパクトすぎて、で自由度が少なかったので、実はそのあまりいい戦績のない JTCC の2年間でもそれがあったんで次のアコードで
そうですね、
今の F1 と一緒だから我慢した時代があって失敗した時代があったからそこで技術者とか開発の人たちがすごく頑張ってでその次のことを見据えてで車良くなってでアコードでチャンピオンが取れるそこにつながるそういう時期だった。
よく覚えましたよ、ジャックスと無限のカストロのカードですね。服部さんだっけ。
服部さんが、ちょっとチャンピオン微妙なチャンピオンの取り方になっちゃったんですけどそれはそれで
見ましたんですよ。ただでもこの 18B18 の時代の JTCC のエグゾーストフローのレイアウトはでもレースはレースでストリートカーはもうやっぱり需要がありますよね、そのテクノロジーからのコンセプトですか。
いやそれは市島さんスプーンの市島さんと、このビルドバイレジェンドの車を作ろうっていう相談をした時に
なるほど
市島さんもやっぱりその JTCC の時代っていうのがやっぱりすごくこう記憶に残ってるしそこの衝撃を受けた部分でもあったし、実際こういうエキゾーストがついてるで他のメーカーは後方排気だったからこういうレイアウトにする必要がなかったのをこういう、ミッションの横を通してっていうのは、すごくその時は衝撃を受けて
もしかしたらホンダだけがそういうレイアウトしかしちゃってないんですよね。すごいですよね。
なんでこのレイアウトにしたかっていうとそのエンジンの搭載値を下げてで操縦性をレーシングカーの車高を落とさなくてもレーシングカーのような操縦性を得られるんじゃないかっていうところで、それをこのプロトタイプでちょっと一回やってみようっていうチャレンジ。そうこれからサスペンションとか、インテリアエクステリア含めて煮詰めていかないといけないところはたくさん残ってるので、まだまだちょっと時間はかかるんですけど、だからテストの時はぜひ一回乗ってもらって。
We're gonna be testing it, as promised. でもこれすごい衝撃ですよ。本物のレースラジエーターですからね。
エンジンの位置を下げるって簡単そうだけどそうすることによって特に水回りのレイアウトだったり、通常はウォーターポンプからの水が排出されるっていうか吸い込まれる、このレイアウト自体が逆転してると思ってもらえれば
リバースですね。
だからラジエーターに下から水が溜まっていって上に抜けていくっていう構造になっている。でここのエキゾーストを通すためにエンジンが40ミリ下がってます。でエアクリーナーは、スプーンのコンセプトエアクリーナーボックスっていうのはホンダはすごく大事に考えられててこのボックスがあるっていうのがもう絶対、もうこのエンジンの性能を発揮するためのもう絶対な必要な条件、
そうですね。
レーシングカーであれば ITB でもいい、
4連トルトでもなくてもやっぱりストリートカ
ー、あくまでもストリートカー、低速もちゃんとトルクが出て、乗りやすい車を目指しているので、これはもうエアクリーナーは絶対ノーマルにしたい。
そのためにもうエグゾストのこのシールドがいろいろ作りましたんですよね。
これで足りるかどうかこれからテストしてみる。でこのサブフレームのところをうまくかわして下に入って触媒につながっていくっていうそういうレイアウト。
やっぱりすごい大変です。なんかマウントもずらしたんですか。
マウントも位置をずらしてあります。本当にこの環長の長いエキゾーストがどういう特性を乗ってみてドライバーがどう感じるのかっていうのは、何馬力出るっていうのといわゆるレスポンスがいいとかパワー感があるトルクがあるっていうそのドライバーが感じるところがどういうふうになるのか、それはすごい楽しみ。
そうですね、やっぱり数字より、そのアクセル踏んで瞬間、どんなレスポンスで反応してくれるそっちの方がワクワクする。
それがシビックじゃない。
それがシビックですね。E テック。
別にそんな500馬力だ1000馬力あるっていうことを求めてんじゃなくて、やっぱ乗っててなんかまあ笑顔になるっていうか面白いって思うような車にしなかったら、まあ、それはやっぱシビックだと。
そうですよね。あと音。
そう。
どういう音になるんでしょう、このティタンの。
こんにちは。
こんにちは。How are you?
はい、最初吉村ジャパンっていう会社に入って最初、カムシャフトの加工とかやってるんです。その後マフラーの開発に行ってでそこを辞めた後に透明パワードっていう会社に行って
パワーですか。
はい、でそこでもカムシャフトの加工をしてからマフラーやったり排気系やったりしてました。
パイプ的に何箇所もう溶接しなきゃいけない。
何箇所ですか。100以上は行ってますね。後ろまで全部含めてですけど、溶接も難しいですし、あとこの辺はもう耐熱のチタンの板を巻いてで耐熱のチタンのパイプを切っていってつないでやってるんですけど、板切って丸めてとかその辺も大変ですし、あと他の干渉物とか周りがあるんで逃げの加工だったりとか、あとガチガチに固めすぎてもっていうのでこうスプリング入れてちょっと逃がしをここからここでまた別体このフランジからここまでで最初1ピース目でこれはまた4、5分までで離れてるんで。
That was a very comprehensive first look at the Built by Legends EG6. Now, of course, this is still very much a work in progress. It's also a prototype. Now, the car will be completed and hopefully be able to get a test drive when it's ready, maybe in a couple of months, together with Ichishima-san. We're very excited to see how it actually drives, whether the carbon layering actually improves the body rigidity in the spots that we want it to. How will it feel like in the street? Will this be the ideal Civic? We're really excited to see. So let us know in the comments. And until next time, catch you guys. Peace out.